Liberal democracy gives you a framework, a structure, a reference point to work towards good governance.
To close the case for side opposition, I call on Professor Surya Subedi.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure and honor to address the chamber this evening on an important motion. I am glad to be back at the Union. Thank you for inviting me to join in this debate and for your kind words of introduction.
I ask the speaker, please speak closer to the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. Since I am the last speaker, I should have the last word. So I can take the liberty of saying whatever I like. But I will stick to my plan. Since it's getting late, although as they say, the night is still young. I would like to say at the very outset that liberal democratic countries, please note that I place an emphasis on countries, may have failed some of the people in the global south, but liberal democracy itself has not failed the people in the global south. It has actually empowered them and put them at the center of the international liberal order. I am saying this as an international lawyer by training, profession, and also passion, who has navigated the political landscape in different countries and international organizations to bring opposing sides together to resolve conflicts and promote and strengthen the international legal order, human rights, and democracy. Therefore, I will argue against the motion, and I am confident that this House will agree with me. My first point is that the spread of liberal democratic principles and practice to the global south has resulted in the widespread achievement and widespread advancement and protection of fundamental human rights. The liberal democratic order began to take shape with the establishment of the United Nations way back in 1945. The Charter of the United Nations is founded on the following three principal pillars: collective security system, development, and the protection and promotion of human rights. And the last two pillars out of the three have worked well for the people in the global south. A key element of liberal democracies is the protection and advancements of human rights agenda. The spread of liberal democracy to the global south has led to huge successes in expanding the protection and advancements of the types of human rights we take for granted in the UK and in establishing global norms. There are, of course, shortcomings, I realize that one, in the implementation and enforcement of human rights all around the world. But human rights agenda, particularly that set out by the United Nations, has set the standard, made people around the globe aware of their rights, and galvanized them into action to assert and defend their rights. It is partly thanks to the universality of human rights, first enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948, and the liberalization of trade and investment. Since then, that we in this hall this evening from different nations and background and culture have been able to gather today. It is thanks to the advancement of human rights. People have been able to travel from one country to another country, migrate from one country to another country, and enjoy the basic rights guaranteed not only by the laws and constitutions of the country, but international law, including International Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I would note that the food we consume daily and the clothes we wear regularly come from different parts of the world, produced by farmers and factory workers in the global south. Look at the labels of the garments you are wearing. Where were they made? This is a modern reality of life, not only here in the UK, but all around the world, whether in New Delhi, Singapore, Johannesburg, Nairobi, or Rio de Janeiro. My second point is that the introduction of liberal democracy in countries in the global south has provided much needed structure and targets in governance in such countries. No matter where you come from, as long as you are lawfully present in this country, the UK, you have more or less every right that a British citizen has, with a few exceptions, such as accessing welfare benefits or voting for or standing in elections for parliament. This should be the case in all countries whose constitution is founded on the values of liberal democracy. This is because the principle of equality is enshrined in the constitutions and other laws of liberal democracies. If you read the constitution of a country, your country or any given country, you will see that the right to equality is guaranteed to all individuals, to be found within the borders of those countries and not just to the citizens of the countries concerned. Is that not a beautiful thing? Some of the revolutions and campaigns for democracy and human rights, such as the Arab Spring, did not succeed in bringing about change in the countries concerned, but many revolutions have brought about big positive changes in a number of countries of the global south and the global north. Please mark my words. It is a matter of time that democracy and human rights will eventually prevail in the countries currently ruled by the autocratic leaders of the global south. I believe in people's power, and empowered by the values of liberal democracy, they will bring change sooner rather than later. Liberal democracy gives you a framework, a structure, a reference point to work towards good governance. Liberal democracy is about enjoying your rights, human rights, or traditionally speaking, personal liberty. My third point is that we should not mistake the concept of liberal democracy as being something gifted by the West or the global North to the global South. The premise of the proposition this evening has been to regard liberal democracy and Western countries as synonyms. That is fundamentally wrong. Why? I will explain in a minute. The concept and even the practice of liberal democracy has in part been shaped by actions of countries in the global South itself. The global South should take ownership of liberal democracy. They have made a contribution to its advancement. They have made a contribution to the advancement of the international human rights agenda. Whether you talk about non-discrimination, whether you talk about racial discrimination, it is thanks to the endeavors of the developing countries within the United Nations that we enjoy today globally. Liberal democracy and Western countries, in my opinion, are not synonyms. Western countries have no monopoly over the idea of liberal democracy. Many countries in the global South are examples of thriving liberal democracies. Indeed, I am currently writing a book exploring the origins of the idea of human rights. And I'm going a lot further back in history than the French Declaration of Declaration of Human Rights, adopted after the French Revolution, or the Magna Carta. Contrary to popular perception that human rights are a gift of the West to the rest, much of the current international human rights agenda is led by the countries in the global South, and many of the rights that we enjoy today is enshrined in international instruments, thanks to the endeavors of the developing countries of the global South. Therefore, liberal democracy itself has been partly shaped from positive change and action in the global South, and these developments have served countries in the global South very well. Most of the countries in the global South which have enshrined liberal democratic values in their constitutions have by and large achieved political stability, a necessary condition for economic development and growth, and have become better governed. India, Brazil, Indonesia, South Africa, and the Philippines are some examples. My own native country, Nepal, is another example. When I was helping the government of Nepal to write a new democratic constitution, my inspiration came partly from the liberal democratic and progressive constitutions of South Africa and Namibia. Likewise, when I was working in Cambodia for 6 years as the United Nations Human Rights Envoy, I persuaded the leaders of the country to carry out judicial and electoral reform by making reference to the electoral and judicial systems of other liberal democracies of the global South itself, including India, Brazil, South Africa, and the Philippines. If I had given a reference to the electoral and judicial systems in the UK, or France, or the United States, I would have made my job more difficult, as I could have been criticized by saying that I was trying to impose the so-called neo-colonial agenda on the country. Since I was giving examples from the liberal democratic countries of the global South itself, it was easier for me to cajole and persuade them into implementing my recommendation. Therefore, not only have the countries of the global South contributed to the development of the concept of modern liberal democracy, but they also function as clear and relatable examples to other countries in the global South that we are yet to experience in liberal democracies. My fourth and last point, Mr. Speaker, relates to positive economic impacts of liberal democracy in the global South. It's very important. Our colleagues from the proposition have placed a great deal of emphasis on economic inequality. But I will say, as an international lawyer who practices in both public international law and international trade and investment, WTO established, founded on within the framework of liberal democracy, liberal international order, has resolved more than 600 disputes, big disputes involving billions of dollars of money, peaceful resolution of disputes. Hundreds, if not thousands, of international investment disputes have been resolved by international investment tribunals. They have created a level playing field, gradually creating a level playing field for all to compete. To conclude, the global liberal order is designed to empower you and me, the individual, not the state. Whether you talk about international trade and investment, whether you talk about human rights, this age, the 21st century, belongs to the people, that the international liberal order is designed to empower you and me, the people around the globe. Therefore, I would like to urge you to vote against the motion tonight. Thank you for your attention.